Redditors who knew men caught on to catch a predator before the show. What were they like? Didn't actually know the guy, but one guy showed up to the sting in a company semi-truck. It is blurred out in the episode, but the company is Covenant Transport. I went to work for them a few years after the episode. During orientation they gave us a list of things that will result in immediate termination. Things like driving under the influence, failing a drug screen, and impromptu meetings with Chris Hansen. I went to school with Rob Klein. From what I can remember of him was that he was quiet and kept to himself. He never did anything to label himself a creep. His excuse for showing up has to be one of the worst. Rob said he showed up to let the 13-year-old girl know he wasn't going to be able to hang out after making the 2-hour drive there. He also throws his brother under the bus for the child porn that is on his computer. I'm pretty late to the game. But my husband worked with, good friends with one of the men on the first ever episode. We were all in our late 20s. He was a highly educated, well-liked guy. He was nice. Funny as hell. We were all shocked. He got busted trying to sleep with a 12 or 14-year-old girl. He got a good lawyer, and so the TCAP didn't show the video of him getting busted. Only a photo that he shared in the chat with who he thought was the young girl. We read the chat log between him and the girl. It was disgusting. He called my husband one time after the show aired to say that this was the first time he did anything like this, and he got caught up in the taboo nature of it. Never spoke to him again. Edit. My husband and I realized after the air show aired in the fall that we saw E the day after he got busted. I believe it was August when he got busted. We accidentally ran into him and got a drink to chat for a bit. When we parted, I specifically remember asking my husband if he thought E was behaving strangely. E was super jumpy. Not like himself at all. It is strange to realize that E continued to work and hang out with my husband and our friends for the months between getting busted and the show going on air. I think this show had more to do with the demise of Yahoo Messenger than anything else. I met the ex-wife of a police officer that was on to catch a predator a few years ago. We were both prospective jurors for a sex crime. She was dismissed because of her relationship to the law enforcement profession and because her ex-husband was involved in a sex crime. She had to discuss the whole story to the entire court during voir dire. A supervisor at my previous job got busted in a big sting at the end of last year. With a bunch of other dudes. He was kinda dumpy in appearance but thought he was hot shit. Both at the job and with the women. He wasn't. There were more than a few who transferred out of his area or specifically asked not to work directly with him. A couple of them said he just creeped them out and let his touch linger longer than was polite. He was just another shitbag to me. One of those guys that never did anything unless the boss was around. Liked to be the one at the company meetings who told everyone to quiet down and listen up when it was already quiet. Dungeon Masters of Reddit. What is the most useless item you gave your party that they were still able to exploit? The jar of endless lard. I put it in as a joke and somehow they managed to set a forest in fire with a timed fuse. Also having them covering various body parts in said lard just to set it in fire for extra damage. Wasn't good. Bagpipes of invisibility. They grant invisibility as long as they're played. Silence is one hell of a spell. I found a homebrew item someplace called a used bag of holding. It basically covers everything you put in the bag with a thin layer of glitter. One of my players took this and began scraping off the glitter and collecting it. Eventually he had enough glitter bags to where he could use animate objects on it. The little shit would have several of these bags fly around and dump their contents on people. causing great confusion as the glitter would get in their eyes and hardly come off because it was sticky. Edit. I don't normally like to edit posts, but I just want to encourage everyone interested in playing D&D to play it. I stared over quarantine and have enjoyed myself immensely. I gave the party a tiny bag of holding made of human skin. I don't remember why. They were trapped in a house fighting a zombie horde and they used the skin bag. Turned it into a sort of Molotov bomb. Used a spell to have it fly over the zombies, who followed the human skin away to be blown up. It was a 45-minute saga to get to that point, and it was easily the funniest and most creative moment I've seen from the DM side. We had a rock that if you were knocked out with it, you were completely invulnerable while unconscious. You had to successfully hit yourself or whoever and take damage from being knocked unconscious from a rock to the skull. That rock caused so much chaos, and death, and life, and permanent head trauma to NPCs we were trying to rescue. I gave my players a torch that couldn't be lit by normal means. After 2 or 3 sessions, one of them finally asked how to light it. I had totally forgotten about it by this point, so I made the NPC mention that it could only be lit by an Elder Red Dragon's breath weapon, and once lit would burn forever. Suddenly, the entire party of 3rd and 4th level toons decides they want to veer off course and get this thing lit. People who have worked on those fake ghost hunter TV shows, what goes on behind the scenes? I haven't worked on one. But one was done on a bar near my house that was supposedly haunted. Everything was based on flying things. Glasses falling off shelves. Beverage hoses flying off their places they're held. The crew proved there were ghosts by setting up a mock bar scene and putting salt around the bottom of all the glasses and left for the night with cameras. Sure enough, the footage showed all the glasses, cups moving around, and the salt barriers were all disrupted. It was like 100% of the glasses had moved in some shape of form. What the fucking show failed to mention is that the bar is literally under an overpass for a train. And at a train station. The moving items are just because trains are coming by. And the building is about 50 feet from the train tracks. I dated a guy who worked on Paranormal State, and he told me that 99% of the spooky sounds in whatnot are added in post. I worked on one for a week. This was about 4 years ago. The hunters invited a psychic. Not sure if that was what he called himself. This guy was a big asshole. And thought he was the shit. Big ego. Anyway, they were hunting in a haunted house. And this guy was doing a walkthrough before taping. He went into the whole routine. Cameras were not rolling. It was just for staging and getting acclimated. During this time I was at Video Village and could hear what was going on. He was in an upstairs room and began to feel a cool breeze. He made a big deal about it and insisted we start rolling. We did. And he went on and on about thou room temperature drops mean a spirit. He started asking crew if they felt the breeze as well. They did. Finally the first AD, who was sick of this guy's shit, told the guy that the breeze was coming from the open window in the other room. The psychic threw a fit and stormed out saying we were all amateurs. That Ghost Hunters show did an episode in a large, old building where I work. Rather not say the name. I laughed out loud throughout the episode at the idiocy. For example, they were taping in a freight elevator. Damn thing is in need of repair and has been for years. When it did a little jolt just before taking off, the hosts insisted that was supernatural in origin. Nah, that's what it does every time it moves. And it continued from there. Every single thing they said proved ghosts had a perfectly simple explanation. The company I work for loved the publicity, even though it was complete nonsense. I work and live in SE, Ohio. I've seen a few episodes of a particular show that investigates monsters. It shows the team going to all kinds of different counties and places. But the actual footage is normally recorded within a 25 miles radius. There are lots of oil tanks in the episodes. They mark the county and township on the safety emergency ID tags. So a well-trained eye can see that most of the footage is shot in the same area of SE, Ohio. I hope this fits here. I used to work for a company that had a few different properties, buildings. One of the properties did not get much business. So it was usually just manned by a receptionist. The usual receptionist was this older eccentric gal, who would also smoke a lot of weed on the job. Probably due to the boredom, isolation of being there. On numerous occasions, she would tell me about how she was 100% convinced a ghost lived in the building. She even named him Matt, or something. Anyway, she got the bright idea to call up a ghost hunter show and invite them up to film. Which they jumped at. Mind you, she did not ask management for permission. Everything was agreed to. But on the date they were to show up, for whatever reason she flaked out and stood them up. Apparently the ghost hunter people showed up and were banging on the doors for a couple hours in the dark with no response. Fast forward a few weeks when I'm talking to the GM when he gets handed a letter. It's a bill for $1,600 from some production company. Half of me wanted to get out of that office ASAP. But half wanted to stay for the lols. The look on his face when he learned what happened was fucking priceless.
Subscribe, my brothers.